Welcome into CBS News 24/7. I'm Mugo Odigwe. We have breaking news from the federal judge overseeing the case involving deportation flights to El Salvador. U.S. District Judge James Boasberg says he found probable cause to hold the Trump administration in criminal contempt. The judge says it's for violating his orders to turn around those planes that were carrying migrants to El Salvador. So let's bring in CBS News Department of Justice reporter Jake Rosen for much more on this. Jake, what can you tell us? What have you learned?
Well, in Judge Boasberg's scathing 40-plus page memo, he writes, "The Constitution does not tolerate willful disobedience of judicial orders, especially by officials of a coordinate branch who have sworn an oath to uphold it." The order at the center of this came on March 15th when Judge James Boasberg, after blocking the deportation temporarily of 5 men, expanded that block of people who the Trump administration was attempting to deport under the Alien Enemies Act to over 200 people on 2 different flights that were on their way to El Salvador. He ordered those planes that were on their way down there so that prisoners could be put to that Supermax prison, the footage of which from that day you're seeing on your screen right now. The planes did not stop, and they were outside of U.S. airspace at the time, the Department of Justice argues, and thus the judge had no authority to order those planes turned around. As a result of this, the judge and the government's lack of explanation over multiple court hearings of why they didn't listen to the order and who, Mugo, specifically at the White House or Trump administration, ordered those planes to continue despite his order. Really, we're at a break point in terms of the federal engagement between the federal judiciary here and the White House. The White House now has to be held accountable, Boasberg says, for not turning these 2 planes around. He's ordering contempt proceedings to officially begin, saying he wants to find out either the government can admit to who at the White House didn't turn those planes around, or he will get to the bottom of it through potentially live testimony on the stand or further ordered depositions in this case.
Jake, I have to ask you, though, what could be the consequences here?
Well, if the Department of Justice, I should back up, the Department of Justice has to agree potentially to even hear this case and prosecute themselves, essentially, in terms of this criminal conduct. If they don't agree to do that, Judge Boasberg argues that he has the power to appoint someone who will prosecute the Department of Justice for not listening to his order. Who that is obviously remains to be seen. We'll see how the Department of Justice and the Trump administration react to this, but any enforcement mechanism, whether it's a fine, whether it's potentially sanctions on someone of some kind, would have to be enforced by the U.S. Marshal Service and the Department of Justice. But Judge James Boasberg, despite the Supreme Court ruling that his temporary restraining order blocking these deportations, that order was struck down, but he says the contempt proceedings that were started in that case before the Supreme Court's order are going to continue, and he's going to get to the bottom of this. And he really cited the boasts by the Trump administration after those planes landed, saying that they wouldn't turn that around, and all of the things cited in court by the Trump administration, basically saying, Judge Boasberg, you don't have the authority to even ask questions about this because this is a national security issue and we're dealing with foreign governments. You're entitled to no information. Boasberg said that's not true. He's going to get to the bottom of this situation.
Wow. Much more to come out of this one, I'm sure. Jake Rosen, thank you so much. We'll talk to you again, by the way, in just a few minutes. For more on how the White House is responding to all of this, let's bring in CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Zhang. Weijia, any reaction from the president on his administration possibly being held in contempt of court right now?
We have not heard directly from President Trump, and we have not even heard directly from the White House about their reaction to this ruling, even though we have asked. So it could come up at any time. But so far, they, are remaining silent about this. But it is very possible that the president could weigh in. He has been adamant that his administration did nothing wrong because he did use a wartime law to basically say that he's able to do this because he claims that the U.S. is at war with Venezuela, and that's why they had to deport these criminal migrants. War, not in the literal sense of a traditional war, but the war on illegal immigration and drugs and violence. And so they, in the past, have been extremely bullish on this in saying that they haven't done anything wrong and saying that the judge, as Jake laid out, does not have this jurisdiction to order the government to do things when they are literally in the air.
And we know one of the people on those flights was Kilmar Abrego Garcia. A hearing on his case was held just yesterday. And today, Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen arrived in El Salvador with one goal. Let's listen to what he had to say. We'll talk to you on the other side.
As I've said before, the goal of my visit is to talk to people here about the release of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. I told his wife and his family I would do everything possible to bring him home, and we're going to keep working at this until we're successful. I also hope to have the chance to meet with him, but we'll have a better idea if that works out a little later on.
So, Weijia, what is the next step here? We know the judge is giving both sides until next week for depositions.
Well, the senator says he wants to talk to people about Abrego Garcia's possible release, but the person he would have to talk to is the president of El Salvador, who was just here at the White House this week and made it very explicitly clear that he has no intention of releasing him back to the U.S. In fact, he used the word smuggling a terrorist back to the United States. And so the senator can go there. He might be able to get onto the grounds of the prison. We don't know that yet, and we certainly don't know if he'll have any face time with this man. But he, I think, is trying to make a statement that somebody in this country, wants him to come back to the United States, because this administration has said many times over that they have no intention of asking for him back.
Wow. Okay. CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang, thank you for joining us on 24/7 today.